Episode 1 begins with the crowded afternoon rush inside Karachi's international airport, where passengers were lining up for boarding, children were crying, luggage wheels rattled across the marble floor, and airport announcements echoed overhead. In the middle of this chaos stood Amina, a young single mom, holding her 4-year-old son, Daniel, with one arm and gripping their old fabric hand-carry bag with the other. It was their first time traveling by plane, and every sound felt louder, every step heavier. She kept checking their tickets, afraid she would miss something important. Daniel tugged on her dupatta, asking if planes flew above the clouds or through them, and she answered with a tired smile even though her heart was racing. When boarding finally began, Amina felt the familiar sting in her chest, the feeling of being out of place among people who looked wealthier, more confident, more used to traveling. She walked slowly down the aisle searching for seat 17C, apologizing as her bag brushed past people's elbows. When she reached the seat, she hesitated. Sitting beside it was a little girl, no more than 5, wearing a pink dress, tiny white shoes, and hair tied in 2 neat ponytails. Her big round eyes looked up with the kind of curiosity only children carried. Next to the girl was a tall, sharply dressed man in a charcoal suit, working on a sleek laptop. He didn't look up at first, but the calm authority in his posture made it obvious he was someone important. Amina whispered, "Excuse me," and helped Daniel into the middle seat. As she tried to settle in, her hands shook slightly. The man finally closed his laptop and looked over briefly, giving a polite nod. His face was handsome but serious, the kind that didn't soften easily. His daughter, however, was the opposite. She kept staring at Daniel with innocent fascination, legs swinging excitedly. 5 minutes after takeoff, Daniel squeezed Amina's hand tightly as the plane rose. "Ami, my stomach is jumping," he whispered, eyes wide. Amina comforted him, hiding her own fear. The little girl turned toward them, holding a half-eaten chocolate chip cookie. "Do you want one?" she asked Daniel. Before he could answer, Amina gently smiled and said, "Thank you, sweetheart, but he's okay." The girl didn't pull back. Instead, she looked at her father and tugged on his sleeve. "Baba, can I share my cookie with him?" she whispered loudly, unaware of how sound carried on planes. The man finally smiled a little at her persistence. "If you want to," he said softly, surprising Amina with the gentleness in his tone. The girl turned again and placed the cookie in Daniel's small hand. He grinned shyly, and just like that, the tension between the families melted. Episode 2 begins when the turbulence hit. The plane shook suddenly, making overhead luggage rattle. Amina stiffened instantly. Daniel whimpered and clung to her, while the little girl across the seat widened her eyes but tried not to cry. For the first time, the CEO, whose name Amina still didn't know, closed his laptop completely and held his daughter's hand. Seeing Daniel trembling, the little girl leaned toward him and whispered, "If I share my cookie, will you stay?" "Don't be scared, I get scared too." Her voice was so soft and sincere that even Amina felt her heart loosen. Daniel nodded, gripping the cookie like a promise. The CEO glanced toward Amina, and their eyes met for a brief second. Something unspoken passed between them, understanding, maybe even respect. As the turbulence eased and the plane stabilized, the girl scooted a little closer and began talking to Daniel as if they had known each other for years. She told him about her toy unicorn, her favorite cartoons, and the rainbow sticker on her school bag. Daniel, still shy but calmer, whispered answers back. The CEO watched them with quiet relief, occasionally glancing at Amina, who whispered a grateful, "Thank you." For the first time on that flight, she felt less alone. Episode 3 begins when the flight attendants start serving drinks and snacks, rolling their cart steadily down the aisle. The little girl, now much more comfortable, kept talking to Daniel, showing him her coloring book and pointing out the sky through the window. Amina watched them with a gentle smile, though a part of her still felt nervous, conscious of occupying the same space as people so far above her in life. She kept her hands folded in her lap, quietly observing the CEO beside her. He had the kind of presence that filled a room, even when he wasn't speaking. His watch looked expensive, his posture confident, and yet there was a tiredness in his eyes, like someone carrying burdens no one else saw. When the flight attendant offered juices, the little girl happily chose apple. Daniel looked hesitant, unsure if he should accept, but the CEO spoke first. "He can have mine. Apple too, please." His tone was calm, respectful, and it made Amina blink in surprise. No one had offered her or Daniel anything in a long time without expecting something in return. The flight attendant handed 2 apple juices, one to the CEO, who then passed it gently to Daniel. Amina thanked him softly, and this time he offered a small smile. Children help each other. We just follow their lead. His voice held a warmth she didn't expect. For a moment, Amina saw him not as a wealthy businessman but simply as a father doing his best for his child. As the children sipped their juice, the conversation between them grew lively. The little girl asked Daniel if he had ever seen clouds up close. When he shook his head, she pressed her small palm to the window and said, "Look, we're flying near them right now." Daniel leaned in with awe, and the CEO reached over to lift his daughter slightly so she could see better. In that moment, Amina noticed how his expression softened whenever he looked at the girl. The fierce businessman exterior slipped away, replaced by a protective tenderness. Halfway through the flight, the little girl suddenly turned to Amina. "Auntie, where are you going? Are you going to see your family too?" Her innocence surprised Amina, who swallowed hard before answering. "No, Beta, I'm going for a job interview." The girl nodded thoughtfully, then turned to her father. "Baba, she's going to get a job. You should tell her good luck." The CEO blinked, caught off guard. Then he cleared his throat. "Good luck," he said sincerely, meeting Amina's eyes. "I hope it works out for you." She smiled, a little embarrassed, but his encouraging tone eased the tightness in her chest. For the rest of the flight, the atmosphere felt lighter, more human, no longer divided by class or circumstance. Episode 4 begins as the plane begins its descent. The captain's voice echoed overhead, announcing turbulence ahead and asking passengers to fasten their seatbelts. The little girl immediately grabbed Daniel's hand. "Don't worry," she whispered proudly, "I'm brave now." Daniel nodded, squeezing her hand back. Amina tightened her grip on her son while the CEO secured his daughter's belt and then glanced toward Amina as if silently checking if she and Daniel were all right. The turbulence was stronger this time. The plane shook, rattling tray tables and making passengers gasp. Daniel whimpered again, burying his face into Amina's arm. The little girl, who had promised to be brave, tried her best but a tear slipped down her cheek. Without hesitation, the CEO pulled her closer, then reached his free hand slightly toward Daniel, stopped. Halfway, unsure if it was appropriate. Amina noticed and nodded gratefully. He rested his hand on the back of Daniel's seat, steadying him as the plane rocked. When the turbulence finally eased, the little girl sniffled and looked at Daniel again. "If you stay next to me, I don't get scared," she whispered, repeating her earlier promise with a trembling voice. Daniel replied softly, "Me too." The CEO exhaled deeply, relieved, then gave Amina a glance filled with something deeper than politeness, something like shared responsibility, shared fear, shared connection. As the plane touched down smoothly and people began clapping, the little girl cheered and hugged Daniel suddenly. He froze at first, then gently patted her back. Amina and the CEO exchanged a brief smile, both moved by their children's innocent bond. Neither of them knew it yet, but this flight had connected their worlds in a way no one could have predicted. Episode 5 begins when the plane finally reaches the gate and passengers begin standing up, pulling bags from the overhead compartments. The little girl is the first to unbuckle, her excitement returning instantly after the fearful turbulence. She grabs Daniel's hand and says, "Come on. We landed," as if she were guiding a lifelong friend. Daniel looks at his mother for permission, and Amina nods with a soft smile. The CEO, now closing his laptop and slipping it into his leather briefcase, watches his daughter's enthusiasm with relaxed eyes. For the first time since boarding, he looks less like a stern executive and more like an ordinary parent caught between responsibility and affection. As passengers crowd the aisle, Amina waits patiently, not wanting to rush or bump anyone. The CEO notices her hesitation. "You can go ahead of us," he offers, gesturing lightly. She shakes her head quickly. "No, it's okay. I'll wait," but the little girl tugs at her father's sleeve and says, "Baba, let them come with us. They're our friends." The CEO meets Amina's gaze, and his expression becomes almost apologetic for his daughter's boldness. Yet there is warmth in his voice when he responds, "She's right. Come with us if you like." Walking down the narrow aisle, the two children lead the way, hand in hand, while Amina and the CEO follow behind. Amina can't help noticing the contrast, his polished shoes and designer briefcase against her old sandals and worn shoulder bag. Yet instead of feeling belittled, she feels strangely safe. As they exit the plane, Cool airport air greets them, and the little girl turns to Amina excitedly. Auntie, can we meet again? Daniel is my friend now. Amina opens her mouth but stops, unsure how to respond. Before she can figure out a polite answer, the CEO steps in gently. Let's at least get to baggage claim first, he says with a small, amused smile. The walk there is filled with small conversations. The little girl asks Daniel what cartoons he likes, and he answers shyly. Amina shares bits about the job interview she is here for, and the CEO listens more attentively than she expects. At baggage claim, Amina's heart sinks when the old conveyor belt starts moving, and one by one, expensive suitcases slide out, none of them hers. Minutes pass, and still nothing familiar appears. Her chest tightens with panic. All her documents, clothes, and most importantly, Daniel's medicines are in that bag. The CEO notices her growing worry and steps closer. Is your luggage missing? He asks calmly. Amina nods, embarrassed. I don't know. It should be here. Seeing her distress, the little girl walks over and pats her arm gently. Don't cry, Auntie. We will find your bag. Episode 6 begins when the belt makes a strange clunking sound and a final row of bags drops out. Among them is Amina's old brown suitcase, scratched and taped, but intact. She exhales a shaky breath, almost laughing in relief. The CEO steps forward to help lift it off the belt before she can move. It's heavy, he says, handling it effortlessly. Let me. Amina murmurs a grateful thank you, feeling a warmth in her chest she didn't expect from a stranger. As they walk toward the exit, the little girl begins digging into her small pink backpack. I want to give Daniel something, she announces. Amina tries to stop her, but the girl shakes her head confidently. From inside, she pulls out a heart-shaped sticker, rainbow-colored, slightly wrinkled. This is my favorite, she tells him. Keep it so you remember me. Daniel accepts it with both hands, as if receiving something priceless. Near the automatic doors, sunlight pours in from the glass walls, and that's when the CEO's driver appears, carrying a sign and bowing respectfully. The luxury car parked outside makes Amina pause. Their worlds are splitting again, the moment of connection fading back into reality. She adjusts her bag, preparing to say goodbye, but the little girl suddenly hugs her tightly. Auntie, will you come with us? Please, just for a little. Daniel can play with me. The CEO steps forward, clearing his throat softly. If you're not in a hurry, he says, unexpectedly gentle, we can drop you where you need to go. It's no trouble. Amina freezes, not because she doesn't want to accept, but because no one has offered her kindness like this in years. She looks at Daniel, who is staring at her with hopeful eyes. And for the first time since the journey began, she feels the possibility of something new, something that might change everything.